Hello, and welcome to another game development broadcast for Project CSK. As usual, of course, I am the creator of the project, and the online name that I go by is Des. We're going to continue working on the project like we have been doing for some time, and today is the Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, today's the Tuesday broadcast. I did miss out on the last Friday broadcast. Sorry, I can't make it every time, but I do try to be consistent on Tuesdays and on Fridays for broadcasting. And if you do happen to miss any of them, they are archived on YouTube at your discretion. Whenever you want to, you can just glance through them or have a look and see what the previous broadcast had. But pretty much all of them are about working on the project and just kind of what I'm currently working on and whatnot. It doesn't cover everything, but it does give you a look behind the scenes of what goes on, some of the challenges that I'm having, what my focus is, and just kind of ideas that I throw around, right? Because it's not, the path isn't clearly defined in intricate detail, but there is a direction and path to the overall project, of course. And another thing that I've been working on is my second YouTube video. I know the first one, it went pretty good, I think, for those who are interested in that specific solution for that specific scenario. I think it was valuable, and it was good for me to see how I would make a YouTube video and just kind of improve on the overall process and try to get better at it and quicker at it, because it's very time consuming. To make a 5-minute video, you could easily sink in a week into making just one 5-minute video. It's amazing how much time and effort goes into it. And there's some challenges, of course, with it as well, just like everything else. But right now I'm working on the second video. I don't know when it's going to come out, but it'll be good. It'll be a good tutorial video that I'm looking forward to. And I think it's going to be an interesting topic. But okay, so that brings us kind of to where we are now. Like I said before in many previous broadcasts, or should I say the more recent broadcasts, I've been putting in a lot of time and effort into mostly just research of shaders, how to do visual effects, and those kinds of things, because they're going to be an intricate part of the project and a very important one when we get to the world, the pet combat system, and everything else that comes with it. But even as it is right now, right, there's still room for shaders and other visual effects and whatnot, which is perfect because it gives me an opportunity to continue to learn. And that's what's really important, is that learning part of it. And I can't stress that enough, because it's just so important to learn the basics. You have a basic foundation of something, and then you can build up on it over time and continue to improve on it and grow on it as time moves on. Those boundaries that were once your limitation are no longer your limitation, and they're just normal boundaries. And then you continue to expand on your boundaries and trying new things. And that's how your skills and your understanding just grows as a whole. And everything becomes another tool in your arsenal of knowledge and skill set that you have in being able to achieve a certain style, aesthetic, effect, functionality, UI design, whatever it may be, right? So all of those things, they come in together really well. And that's kind of what I'm been working on, is try to improve my understanding so I can do cooler stuff and I can have fun doing it, because it is pretty fun. I know it's not for everybody. This kind of technical side of it is definitely not for everybody, and I respect that. I get it. It's totally cool. Some people just want to play the finished video game, right? But others, like myself, and there are many of those, I believe, they want to see what goes on behind the scenes. They want to see what's the decision making. Why is something this way instead of another or some other way? Why was this implemented in a certain solution? Why do these specific mechanics exist in the way that they exist and are important part of the game, right? So all of these things are things that I know some people are into, not necessarily everyone. Oh, hey there, Mr. Cog 3D. I'm a guy too. Yes, I agree. You definitely fall into that category. Hello and welcome to the broadcast. Hope you're doing okay and had a good weekend. And make sure to enjoy the last of this little bit of warm weather that we're having, because not too long from now, it's going to be gone and it's going to be rain, cloud, and more rain and clouds, pretty much. Yeah, I've been doing good. Been doing good. Like I said, I've been working on my second tutorial, and I also had an opportunity to work on the project over the weekend as well. And it's something that is going well. And what I'd like to do today is kind of take it a little bit easy and just kind of figure some stuff out. Because I got it to a point. Let me actually just turn on my controller. Let's jump right into it. So I updated Unity to 2022.1.16 F1. Previously, I was on 10 F1. And in 16 F1, some things behind the scenes, they changed. Specifically, I noticed that the order of execution for when their event system is available in some scenarios, changing from one scene. So when you load one scene async into another scene, the event system at some point becomes a null object reference when it's transferring. The strange thing is that it wasn't doing that before in 2022.1.10 F1. It was a different behavior, right? So I find that very strange that they changed something like that behind the scenes. And there's other stuff too that I don't quite know all the details, but I know for me that happened or I really noticed that because it broke my code, and I was trying to understand why did it break. And I was looking at it and I was scratching my head going, this was working perfectly fine. I haven't done anything, and I mean absolutely nothing, right? All I did was update from 10F1 to 16F1, and my code breaks. And eventually, after just kind of messing around, looking into it a little bit more, I came to the conclusion of, okay, so this changed, and then what do I do to fix it, right? So I kind of just worked around it. Chances are they may revert it back, or they may do something else, but I may need to find an alternative solution for some of the functionality that I was implementing. Anyway, so here we are now. And so, of course, you'll notice another thing is this button I added. So this is for the emote system, which is basically, oh, there's that weird logical bug again. Sometimes when I press the button, it double triggers and it expands and collapses at the same time. That's very strange. I do need to track that down. That's one of the things I want to do is, because I'm at the point with the game room specifically that I want to track down some of these bugs. I want to clean up some logic and definitely do some refactoring of some of the stuff that I kind of let linger for a little bit until I get it to this point. And then yeah, I want to work on its stability. Maybe not so much performance, but maybe a little bit of performance. I don't think performance is a big deal right now, just because it gets 60 FPS fairly well, but you can see it's dipping down, but those dips are because of it's running in the development environment here, and there's a lot of other stuff that kind of goes on behind the scenes. But anyway, so what I was testing was I did a Android build, and I wanted to test this functionality, so with the expressive emotes. So I added this in here, and that's also in here because if you do a Windows build, there's no shortcut for this yet. The only way previously we were getting access to this was the pressing the right trigger on gamepad, and now it doesn't want to work. That's weird. Why does it not want to work now? Oh, controller's off. Okay. That would explain it. Okay, there we go. And there's that double trigger. You can see when it does that behavior and it comes in and then it goes out almost immediately, that's that logical flaw that I need to fix. It's not crashing. It's a logical flaw somewhere, which results in this double trigger. And That's one of the things I would really like to figure out. But anyway, so that's kind of what I want to do. But what I also did is, oh wow, this gamepad is just, oh, it's low on battery. Okay, let me plug it in real quick. Okay, so that explains it because I was wondering what was going on. It kept on being unresponsive and then it keeps on turning off. And obviously, that's a clear indication of low battery, but I didn't notice it right away. So we'll just plug it in, we'll let it charge. Okay. So with that charging, now it should be a bit more responsive. Okay, that's much better, much better. With that weird right trigger thing, you can see it's happens periodically. Like it happened there, not that time. It happened that time, happened again, nothing. Yeah, it's very strange. Clearly, it's a logical flaw, but we'll get it. Anyway, so I did an Android build, and I was testing out some of this functionality. I did a Windows build. I tested out some of this functionality, and it looks pretty good. So previously, you've seen me working on the popsicles, and I don't remember what else I was working on, but the popsicles are done. And then I also went in a step further, and I implemented the shield. So this is our shield. And the shield is actually a 3D object using the shader graph. That's not what I clicked on. There we go. So you can see the shield a bit better now. But that's our shield. It's my first shield that I did like this. I know it was kind of implemented partially before, but now I got it into here, and I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely not exactly what I want it to look like in terms of a finished, polished thing, and you hardly even notice the minor details when you look at this thing. You don't notice the hex pattern on the edges of it. But the cool thing about it is that you can just take the shield, right? And because it's a shader, you can modify the colors of it very easily, and it can all of a sudden be whatever color you pretty much want. So it's pretty cool in the way that shaders work. And you can even add more like a glow to it. Like you can do all kinds of interesting things to it. Anyway, so I was working on that. I got the functionality for the freezing and the unfreezing of both the players and the explosives working. I do need to definitely do some cleanup stuff. So let's jump into a game room and just kind of see what it looks like. Okay, we will go to the next round. Okay, next round. All right, so what I'm going to do is just going to get some pickup items, and we will test out the shield, and we'll test out the popsicle freeze. And you can see that this is pretty much like functional. Like in terms of the core functionality of what I wanted to implement, um, pretty much most of it is here. It's not completed, of course, but it's pretty good. The expressive emote system, if it works, come on, work. This works quite well. I really like how that turned out. We got the touch buttons and we got the everything else for the most part working well. There's definitely some bugs that need to be fixed. I'm fully aware of that. And we will track down some of them. And then I want to do some not performance, some code improvements, specifically refactoring some logic, implementing some logic that I wanted to implement before, but I never really kind of got around to it, and just general cleanup stuff because I want to have it in good shape for when I go and move on to the game world, because the game world is going to basically take all of this logic and then build on top of that functionality. So I want to have a good base to really build up on, and for that I want it to be good and easy to work with. So there's the freeze of both the player and the explosive. And once the freeze wears out, of course, the explosive explodes. So while it's frozen, right, it doesn't actually explode, but it's only after, when, as soon as it defrosts, it goes boom. And that's the intended design of the explosive, in that no matter at what point it's in, if you freeze it, it can't explode. But as soon as it defrosts, it can explode. And yeah, so you can just keep freezing it. Oh, my shield. I forgot. I modified that, but I didn't set it back. I need to remember that when you modify shaders and those parameters, they're saved. It's not like the other settings where you make changes, you hit stop, and then it reverts back. That's not how it works, right? So I need to go back and undo those changes that I did. But yeah, so this is it. This is pretty functional in terms of the things that I wanted to achieve and do. So here's another logical flaw. So that menu isn't supposed to be behind. It's supposed to be in front, right? So these kinds of little things, and they do happen. Wait, it shows in front, but it's behind. Either way, Z order doesn't matter on 2D. It's order in layer, or whatever it's called. So that's why it comes up behind, even though it's in front. But yeah, so I want to fix up some of this stuff, and I want to slowly work my way into doing some more pixel art stuff before we fully go into the world and dive into the deep end of that, because there's a lot of artwork that needs to be done for the project, and I want to not kind of let it linger for too long without adding something or doing something, anything really, that just helps kind of nudge it forward a little bit more. Because the more artwork we have, the better the project looks aesthetically, of course, and the easier it is when there's more artwork to show it to an artist and say, this is the trajectory that I want to go with, right? When you only a select number of items, it's okay, but it's not clear enough. And my goal is to really set a clear path for an artist, so then later on in the future, when I find someone that I want to commit to and onboard them onto the project, then they'll have an easier time because of the precedent that's going to already be set from the previous artwork. I'm fully committed to replacing all of this artwork later on. So we'll see how it goes for now. But for right now, I think it's really good, not just as a placeholder, but it looks better. Like it looks good to have more artwork. Anyway, so let's jump into it and just pick up where things are, and we'll move forward from that and just keep going. For those of you that are new and are just joining in, hello and welcome to the broadcast. Hope you're doing okay. And feel free to hit that follow button and all that stuff, follow, subscribe, and all that stuff, you know, the usual stuff. Because when you do that, it shows not just to me that there's people that are interested, because so the way that it works is both YouTube and Twitch, because I broadcast on both, they don't even count you as a user. If you're a guest, you don't count. So if you're not logged in, you don't count. Even if you're logged in, but you don't say anything, right? You don't count, right? If you're logged in and you say hello, or you say something, right, you count for about, I think, 15 minutes to half an hour. Then if you don't say anything, again, you don't count. So the counter on the broadcast is not an accurate representation of who's watching. And I have no idea who's watching. None whatsoever. I have no idea who's there until you say hello, or until you say hi, or drop an emoji in chat, or hit that follow button. I have no idea who's watching. There's no statistics that are accurate that are provided either on Twitch or on YouTube. The only thing that I have to go by is the limited information that's available to me. But by saying hello or throwing an emoji or showing engagement, you count as a person who's interested into the content that I'm making. And why is that important? One, I know there's another person that's interested, or more people are interested. Two, it actually helps the search result and discoverability. Meaning if there's only 0 people watching and no one ever watches ever, it's not going to show potential new people that are going to be interested. But let's say there's 5 people that are watching. What do those 5 people have in common? Let's say they're all into game dev, they're all into, let's say, Bomberman, or they're all into Pokemon, or whatever it may be. When other people meet that same criteria, there's a higher chance of this stream potentially being shown to them as something that they may potentially be interested in, right? And as that counter goes up, then that means the more people it will be potentially shown to. That's why those who are at the very, very top that get 10,000, 100,000 kind of viewers, they remain at the top, and they're the only ones that are at the very top because they get the most engagement on all of their broadcasts. That's how it works. That's how the system works. Not in full detail, but that's generally how it works. That's why you also hear people on YouTube when they make a video that say, hit that like button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, and all of that. It's because of that engagement affects the search results, and the search results affects future new potential people who are also going to be interested in watching the content that's created. So that's why you hear me say that, and that's why you hear everybody say that all the time. Pretty much every broadcast, every YouTube video, every single one of them say that because of that. Anyway, weird, didn't know that. Yeah, it's one of those things that I didn't understand for the longest time either, and I don't quite 100% understand it to this point, to be fair. I don't. Nobody knows exactly what goes on behind the scenes, but we do know that there are important factors that are considered, and the like button, the subscribe, and the engagement are definitely at the very, very top of it. That's how it works. Okay, so let's fix some stuff. Let's do some cool stuff and see where we're going to get to today. All right, so one of the things that I noticed that I, of course, want to fix is that double trigger on that, what was it called again? The right trigger. So that only happens when you press the button. It does not happen. I have not seen it happen even once when I click this. This is always consistent. It's always 100% accurate, and I used it as a test, right? So I know that it's not the event that's being double triggered, right? So something is causing it. What exactly? I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. So that's one of the things I want to look into, right? I really like that emoji or that emote. I think it's really well done. Okay, and then the other one is, of course, this here, right? Like this navigation is clearly in front, but it shows up in behind, which is not correct. You should see these two buttons. One is here, one is here. That's why I can jump between them. So one's on this side, one's on this side, but they're in behind, which is not correct. So I wanted to, that should be a simple fix. So let's probably go at this one first and see why. Why is it behind and not in front, right? Because the way that I did it, I believe I made it so that this is dynamically. So this at, I think this point or one of these points, it dynamically sorts up above. So I'm curious as to why this did not come up in front when it should have, and it also comes up in front. I think actually let's double check that. So let's go to. Oh, we can't go to main menu from here. Interesting. Okay, so let's go to this. Okay, so we'll wait. Log in. So let's see on my friends, is it also, yeah, so it's different here. This goes on top, but inside of the game room, it goes behind. How does that make sense? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So let's go back into the game room. Oh, now it's in front again. Okay, then I don't know what to say about that. Maybe it was on a fresh, it may have been on a fresh login, I think. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out very soon. Okay, so on here, if I just go to that, okay, so that's in the right location. Interesting. That's in the right location. Interesting. So then if we go log in, how did I get that wrong? Okay, I don't know what's going on. It won't let me log in. What's the server saying? Nope. Server's good. So I don't know what happened there. I should have looked at the console a bit more closely. But that's okay. It didn't look like anything crashed. But again, these are the usability things that I want to figure out, right? So if we go straight from here to log in. Okay. And then from here, we go into here, bring this up, and then it's in front again. Okay, so that's very strange. How does that work? How did we get it to be? How did we get it to come up behind? I could have sworn it was just doing it on its own. You guys saw that, right? I'm definitely not imagining that part. But okay, let's try this again. Mouse click. Nope. Let's go again. Nope. So what's the differentiating factor here? Could it have crashed maybe? I guess. But I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Maybe we need to go straight into login. go to game room, go to guild, click on something. Nope, still working. I'm not sure. Because before, so it was doing it consistently, and then now it's not. So I don't really know what to say about that. I don't see any errors whatsoever. Okay, so that's nothing. That's me just color coding it when I was doing some development stuff, I guess. Okay, so let's keep this one in the back of our mind then, since this one doesn't want to work. Let's have a look at that, the double trigger of the right trigger. So what's happening there? Because when we press it, and there we go. So it just did it right there. So let's see what's happening there in terms of the code part of it. Oh, I was working on some other stuff. Like I said, I was working on the tutorial. So I moved a bunch of stuff around. So I'll need to open, what do I need? We need the input on the model. Okay, so we have the character model. Okay, and then I want the, I think it's the input action controller or the, it wouldn't be the movement controller, it would be the action controller or the, I think it's the action. Okay, so from here, okay, so here it is, right trigger. On add listener, we go and add for the start and for the release. Start, release. Okay, so that looks okay so far. And then on the remove, same thing, but we just remove the listener. Okay, so let's go to this function. So this one, on the release, we're not doing anything. It's on the press that we're doing it. And then if it's user controlled, so if it's not user controlled, we exit out of that. And then this calls toggle menu. So toggle, again, checks if it's user controlled. Let's put a test right here. Debug.log, because I just want to see what it outputs. If this gets double triggered for whatever reason, because there may be another logical flaw somewhere. So I want to see at this point what we get. And then we'll go generic functions dot, let's go with color, probably go with a soft blue. Okay, so then we're going to say, let's put some plus signs, called, and we'll just drop in the function name. Okay, so that's what I want to see when I press that right trigger button, and I'm going to press it a bunch of times and just see if it double triggers, meaning if the event is registered twice. So let's have a look at that and see. Object is not a referent. What is that? I want to see what that is. Movement controller? Interesting. Oh, right, because I was working on that file. So, yeah, okay. That was weird. Okay, so let's try this now. So, right trigger. Let's see how many times we see that output when I press it just once. Okay, so here's the first press. So we only saw that once, and this is what I'm looking for, just this. So let's try that again. That looks like it double triggered. I could be wrong, but okay, let's try that. Okay, so that definitely double triggered because I cleared it and then it went twice. So let's follow this and see kind of how did that even happen? It's coming from the exact same place. It doesn't go any farther before that, which I find kind of strange. So if it's coming from the exact same place, then okay, sure. So it's called from this line, and this is as far back as it goes. So that means this is being double called. On one single press, it's being double called. Did I name this incorrectly somehow? Nope. So one is add, one is remove, but it's still called twice. I don't understand that. How can it be called twice? Controller primary gamepad right trigger and then start. It doesn't go farther back at all. So, okay. Let's go here and do a search. I don't know if you've used this search before. Come on. So this is another search that's really powerful. There's a shortcut for it, but it's this little button over here. It's the newer search that they want to push for. So this allows you to do a much more advanced search, almost like a SQL query. So what I want to look for is anything that has input, action, control. There's only one object with it. Okay, so there's one object on the scene that has this, which is correct. So that's definitely correct. Oh, by the way, with this, you can build whatever query that you want, and then you can save them for later usage. Like it works really well. Kind of like building out a SQL query. Now you can build out some pretty complex queries into this, and then you just save them for later usage. And then whenever you want to use them later, you just look at your previously saved stuff and you just load it and see what the results are. So it's very powerful. I barely scratched the surface in my understanding of this search, but it's pretty good. Okay, so we know that there's only one, because obviously there's only one player character. But then how are we double triggering this event? How is this being double triggered? How can it possibly? Because there's only two references to it. One of them is the add listener, which calls this. The other is the remove listener, which removes this. And it's checked both times that is user controlled. There's only one reference to this. So if I was to take this out as an example, right, it would stop working. What are those errors? Oh, too late. Okay, so right trigger now does absolutely nothing. Yeah, so that does nothing. This still works, of course. This uses the same functionality, but it just hooks in at a different point. That's why this is still functioning, whereas the other one is not. Okay, so how can we debug this? Because what's happening is that it's being called twice, repeatedly. What we can do is, I know it's not an ideal solution, but I could put in a delay, right? Because when it double triggers, it's doing it very quickly. So what I can do is I can put in a delay so that if you press it once, you can't press it again for another half a second, so 500 milliseconds. That would prevent the double triggering. But what I'd like to understand, if possible, is why is that happening, right? Because the code, all of it, it comes back to this point, and it comes back to this listener. This is as far back as it goes. There's only one add event. Actually, let's confirm that. There's only one add event, and it's on the start, meaning that there's no other way to add these listeners, so there wouldn't be any duplicates. Remove listener is on destroy. So on start, we add the listeners. On destroy, we remove the listeners. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what's causing that. I'm open to suggestions if you guys have any of how to diagnose that. But I mean, in terms of solutions, one that I just mentioned, I can put in a delay, because it could just be the controller itself, right? Because this one is an analog controller. So when you press it, it could be that at X, actually that's worth trying. So if I press it slowly, will it keep triggering? So if I press it just a tiny bit, triggers. If I keep pressing it, no. Okay, so that double triggered right there, right? Yeah, it's the exact same. It's called from the exact same point. So this is what I don't understand, is how can it double trigger? Because I don't, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that's my code. So let's have a look at that just to really make sure, right? So what we'll do is we will go into, whoops. We'll go into the controller stuff, wherever that is. Where did I put that? It's been so long since I looked at input. There we go. And we will dock it right here. Okay, so I know I do need to fix this up, but okay, so this is the one that we're currently going for. So primary all, right? And that's what we were calling is primary all input action primary gamepad right trigger. This is it right here. So yeah, this looks pretty standard to me. Gamepad right trigger. There's nothing special. There's nothing out of the ordinary on this that I can see. I could have went for gamepad. And added a new one under gamepad for right trigger. I could have done that. But instead, I just left it here for, like I said, I need to move some of this stuff around. And if you're not familiar with this is the new input system, as they call it. It's pretty good. It's really good, actually. But it has some flaws, some that I haven't figured out why. I still cannot get up arrow and so on the keyboard. I can't get the directional up and right and spacebar to work at the same time. I don't know why. It just doesn't work. It could just be my keyboard. It could be my computer. It could be so many things. I don't really know. But this is really powerful system to use. And you can have a bunch of different action maps and you can have different schemes as well. So it goes in pretty deep. And then when you use this to create it, what it does is it generates a C# file for you. This is your C# file that it generates, right? I would not recommend modifying this by hand because it does get overwritten. But this is the C# file of all of those buttons, of all the configuration stuff that you see. So they used a bunch of JSON objects, and then it goes down farther and it gets into the code part of it. And yeah, this is what it does, is basically by using that, that panel, it generates this. And every time you make modifications there and you save it, it regenerates this class file. I believe you could modify this class file, but I would not recommend it because the next time you go to regenerate, it overwrites this again. So this is, when you're referencing it, this is what we're calling inside of here. Here, when we're calling input controller, primary all and all of this stuff, we're referencing this generated class file and all of the functionality that it has within it. So yeah, that's what it does. That's the new input system. However, I'm not going to mess with that. I heard it's good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I personally, I really like it. I like that you can bind keys really easily. Like you could say keyboard button this or keyboard button D or WASD can be the same as arrows up, down, left, right. Actually, I can show you real quick. So keyboard button, so what we can have is primary movement, right? So what I have is it all goes through the same event, right? I have WASD, right? So WASD arrows, right? Keyboard arrows and joystick pad, all of them group together and bind it together to give me the same results, which is pretty cool. It's really neat how that works. And it works very well. You could add more buttons into here if you wanted, or like it doesn't care if it's a keyboard, if it's a gamepad, or if it's mouse. It doesn't care. You can bind anything to anything and you can group them together. So I have WASD, I have arrows, and I have joystick D-pad, all of it under movement. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. It just makes it so easy to do that. Okay, so this is not. It doesn't look like that's our culprit right there. So I'm still unsure of how we double trigger it. I'm tempted to just implement that solution that I just mentioned, which isn't really a solution. It's more of kind of like a hack to just prevent that button from double triggering so fast, and just put in artificial 500 millisecond delay. That way it won't expand and collapse, because that's what it's doing. That's exactly what it's doing. And let's try that again. Because what's happening is that sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't, which is what's confusing to me, because I don't know what is causing it, because all of it is going through the same location in terms of logic, in terms of execution. Where's that thing? Let's put that right there. Okay, so right trigger, there we go. So I pressed it once and it triggered twice. So there's one and there's the other. Almost identical, right? One right after the other. So if I was to put in an artificial delay, the first one would trigger, right? But then because of that 500 millisecond artificial delay, the second one here would then not be able to trigger and it would get rejected. So I'm thinking maybe that might be the way to go. I would prefer to figure it out, but I don't know what I can do about this, because this is all Unity stuff. There is no before this. It's only 2 lines, and this takes me right to. So that takes me right to here. And that's it. It doesn't go back any farther, meaning its origin point is here, and then beyond this, I can't go back, because the stack trace just doesn't show it. So I don't know. That's got me thinking, though. What if the other buttons do the same thing and I just haven't noticed it? You would think I would have noticed something like that earlier. Let's try it. So we'll go with primary button. Action primary pressed. Is user controlled, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's put this here. And we will put in a debug.log, generic functions, format text color, generic functions, color, and let's go soft blue just like the other one. And we will call this called action primary pressed. Okay, so that's going to come out nice and blue. Let's see, on the release, nothing. Action primary pressed, action primary release does nothing. Okay, so we'll see a bunch of these. Let's see if it double triggers when I press the button. Because if it double triggers, then that means there's something else going on that I need to be aware of, whether it's a flaw in my code or whatever. And here, this thing is just racking up all of these errors. That's definitely new since 2022.1.16 F1. This was not the behavior at 10 F1, and this is the behavior specifically from 16 F1. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm just going to ignore that. And what we'll do is we will run it. So now primary button is button A on the Xbox, or the south button if you want to think of it that way. So when I go and press this, so that's only one press, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's pretty consistent. Let's clear that. That is consistent. So that's not doing it, but the right trigger is. Okay, so let's go right trigger. And there we go. Just like that. My first press, it double triggered. Why though? Is it crashed? I don't know. I don't think it is. No, it's definitely not crashed. Could something else be causing this? So maybe this causes this? What is test mode? Yeah, test mode is nothing. It's just an output. Okay, so we have touch. We have right trigger, and that's it. And of course, we're not using touch right now. So that's the thing, though, is because when using it in this form, so this is same as touch, right? This doesn't double trigger. So that leads me to, wait, just as I say that, let's try that again. No, I think I was just maybe imagining it. Oh, I was clicking on the same spot. Okay. Yeah, no, that's working correctly. So it's really the right trigger. I'm not sure how I can diagnose that, because that might be just um, something, because that's not the first weird thing that the Unity input system does. I still don't know how to, like I said, I don't know how to solve the up arrow and right arrow on the keyboard as well as spacebar at the same time. I don't know how to fix that either. But WASD and spacebar works perfectly fine. But the arrows and spacebar, they do not work fine, which I find really strange. It could just be that I have my it could be that it's because of the way I have this structured. Maybe there's something wrong here in the way that I have it structured, because you can see there's a lot of redundancies here. What I need to do is properly segment this stuff out and create my action maps accordingly, or maybe even spread them out and have more than one scheme, because currently I have scheme all control schemes. So I have a keyboard scheme, which I'm not really using, and then I have scheme 0, right? But I think I need to use the more advanced features of this and better use it. That way it may address some of that stuff. I don't really know. I really don't. Wow, my neighbor is smoking some really potent stuff. I can smell it very clearly through my balcony door. Huh. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I don't know how to solve this. What I'm thinking is I will just go with that solution that I kind of have. So what we'll do then is on the right trigger right here, we will add a delay at this point, is what I'm thinking. So the delay, how do we want to do it? We could do it with a coroutine. We could do it with just a time check. We could do just a time.time, I think might work. So if we say float time current equals time.time, right? And then we store one variable of last time used, right? It's similar to a coroutine, I guess. It's just, I think, simpler, because then you don't have to have a coroutine. So let's go with right trigger. Let's store that. Private float, right trigger, time. No, let's go with time, right trigger used. Okay. So we'll go 0f by default, right? And then we'll go to our, oh, where was that? I should have bookmarked it. I really need to use bookmarks better. Okay. Float time difference equals, we'll say time current minus time right trigger used if time difference greater than equal to 0.5 f, so half a second, 500 milliseconds. Actually, let's do it the other way. No, it doesn't matter, I guess. We can do it both ways. If it's less than that, we return. However, if it does fall in greater than that, we'll say time, used equals time current, right? And then this just needs to then later be moved up. So now that we have this implemented, let's test it and just see, does this work, right? I would like to think it does, but let's see. And 500 milliseconds is probably a bit too much, but still should be okay for the purposes of this experiment. Okay, so let's clear that. Okay, so we're going to go with right trigger. I'm just rapidly pressing it, and you can see that the double trigger is no longer, like, I'm pressing it, I would say, an average of 4 to 5 times a second, and this is what you're seeing. Okay, so that definitely solves it. But what I have noticed is now I'm pressing it multiple times and it's not responsive enough. So we want to bring that down. What I think is what we'll do is we'll make it a serialized field. That way we can just tweak it through the inspector, right? I think that makes more sense. So we'll say serialized field, private float. We'll say delay right trigger usage equals 0.5f default. And then we'll bring that down to here. Okay. So that's in there. Wow, that stinks. My neighbor's just smoking. Whatever. Okay. So then what I want to do is put it into the prefab of the model, right? So what we want to do is go to the character model, hold Alt, and then click this little thing, jump into the prefab. And then what we want to do is go over here onto the right side and say delayed right trigger. So instead of 0.5, let's drop it down to something like 0.2, right? Because I'd like to think I was pressing it a good 5 times a second because I was just rapidly mashing the button, right? And that's what I want to test, right? I want it to be responsive for those that got quick trigger fingers, but also I don't want that flaw to still be present. So let's see, is 0.2 delay good enough? Okay, so let's see. That feels very responsive to me. I think 0.2 is perfect. That way I notice that if I press it fast enough, I can get it inside of that 0.2 and then it rejects my button press. But you have to press it pretty fast for that to happen. And chances are, if you're going to use this, you're going to not be pressing it that fast, right? So I'd say that's an okay solution for now, though I don't really look at it as a solution. I look at those kinds of things as a workaround. And whenever I do a workaround, I want to note it. So now that that addresses that, let's go back here and we will add a note. This is added because the right trigger event seems to be double dispatched / captured sometimes. This does not always happen, but often enough that a solution is needed. This solution adds an artificial delay to prevent the double capture of the event that was dispatched. I think that's clear enough. And that solves it. Again, I'm using the word solve loosely here. I don't believe that that is a solve. I fully consider that to be a kind of a hack, not a real solution. So I'll let that go for now. And then if it comes up again, of course, I'll come back to this note, have a look at it, and kind of gauge it. Because then I can just as easily disable this like this, right? And it'll return back to its previous state, right? So I want to just kind of leave it as that for now. But I think that works. Okay, so let's go back and see if we can get the other thing to kind of figure it out of what was going on in terms of the UI showing up in behind when it should have been in front. That I don't know either, so we'll figure it out. So we need to figure out how to make it happen. Let's go with menu, friend. Okay, so that's with controller, does not work. Let's try that again. Maybe I need to close and reopen Unity. What if it's one of those? It could be. Okay, so that time was control. This time it is mouse click. Nope, it is on top. Okay, let's try that. So I'm going to close Unity. Give it a sec, and then I'm going to reopen it again. Okay. So we'll just take a little bit of time to open. My computer isn't exactly the fastest, but it's good enough. And to be honest, Unity is getting slower and slower with every new version. Like, there's a pretty big difference between 2021 and 2022 in terms of performance. If performance is your thing, stay with the LTS and stay with probably 2021 or even 2020 or 2019 even. Some people are still using those. Okay, so let's see. We closed it. We opened it, right? And then what we'll do is we'll run it and go straight into it and see if we can get that to happen. Click here, friend, click. Nope. Okay, so maybe it's not friend, maybe it's guild. Maybe you have to, I don't know. Really? I'm not sure what you mean by really. I said a bunch of stuff. I don't know exactly which part that applies to. Okay, so let's go with, nope. How did that work? 'Cause it was, you said new version is slower. Yes, it is slower in terms of using Unity, not the actual published or compiled game. The published or compiled game, that is faster, but actually using Unity itself is noticeably slower. What I mean by that is when I go make a quick change in terms of the code, so I'm going to just quickly edit a line, save it, and then bring focus back here, and you see the computer's just hanging. This takes considerably longer, right? Playing from a stopped state, clicking play, that takes considerably longer. And the bigger your project gets, the more it's noticeable. And then building your project also takes longer, right? So all of those things are a factor. If you read about it online, some people, and I've noticed this too, because for me, it was instant. Like before, like when I go make a change in the code, watch how long this takes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. It doesn't show the counter. They used to show the counter before. But this is quite a bit of time to wait, right? Before, it was instant. It was a fraction of a second, right? And here's this error I'm getting again as well. So yeah, those things are definitely noticeable. And I was reading it online. There's people that are working on projects that are much bigger than mine, right? And I mean considerably bigger than mine. And they were seeing delays of what you just seen me do. They were seeing delays. Some people 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and on the extreme, I was reading some people were experiencing 10 minutes. Like, can you imagine making a code modification and then having to sit there for 10 minutes before you can use Unity? That is completely unacceptable to me, right? And then the irony was, so in that thread, Unity comes back and says, "Oh, no, it's not slower, it's faster. Here's a debug tool." So they provided a tool that does a breakdown, and it does a breakdown and shows you exactly which part took how much time. So the community took that tool, right, and threw it right back at, not threw it isn't the right word, but presented the same information right back at Unity. And they're like, "No, thank you for the tool, but this tool just proves our point that it's so much slower, not your point that it's faster," right? And they were right. Right. And then Unity, I don't know what the response has been since then, but there's been some back and forth. But so there's a number of things that happens that causes this slowdown. When you compile something, right, it should be preserved. Unless it is modified, that should be preserved. It shouldn't need to be recompiled, right? Class files are one of those things that you can compile. Objects, prefabs, and other types of core things you can once you compile it, if it doesn't change, it should be instant, right? Which is why when you, let's say you clear your temporary file, your temporary cache file, and you completely clear it, your first play of Unity is going to be really, really slow. And I mean like super slow, right? But then once it does that, it caches a bunch of stuff. So then after that, anytime after that, you go in and you press play again, anything that's cached that hasn't changed, that doesn't need to be recompiled, is instantly just reloaded into memory. And then anything that's being changed gets a quick compile and gets tossed in the mix. And there you go. It just plays, right? But something happened between 2021 and 2022 version of Unity that some things that were compiled will continue to get recompiled, or they will not get cached correctly, or there's extra steps that are, or delays of some sort. I don't know the intricate details. I'm just giving you the short version of it, but something is going on which causes these significant slowdowns, including this of what you see me do. Like for me, I would say coming here and making a line change, hitting save, coming back here and watching this delay for this amount of time. How long was that? You tell me. That was a good, like, I wasn't counting exactly, but I would say that was a good 6-7 seconds, right? Approximately, right? 6-7 seconds versus how long did it take before? About 0.1, right? So you do the math. How many times difference is 0.1 versus, let's be generous, say 5 seconds, right? That's a pretty big difference for me, right? And if I notice it, right, I feel really sorry for other people that are working on much bigger projects that are sitting there going like, "Oh my God, like I could go out for coffee, go out for a break and come back every time I hit the save button," right? So it's one of those things of like, what do you do? All right? I mean, you can present it to Unity, but then it's Unity's call whether they want to address it or not, right? So yeah, it's just one of those things, right? And I really noticed it. In addition, like that setting. So inside of here, when you go edit, I think it's preferences or project settings. I forget which one it is, but there's a setting in here. Um, Not external tools. There's a setting in here that says do not compile, or what's that setting called? I forget where it is now, but there was a setting in here that basically tells Unity that when it is in play mode, so when I am playing it, right, and it's being played, and this is completely broken since I would say 2021, somewhere in there, it broke and it carried its way to 2022. So there's a setting in here where you say, don't recompile, right, if the game is in play. Right now it is in play. So if I go in and I make a change and I hit Control S and I come back to here, look at what it's doing. It's recompiling code and trying to bring it back into the project when it's specifically told not to do that, right? So previously, when it was in play mode, it wouldn't do this, and now I'm getting these errors too. It would only do that if it was in stopped mode. So the benefit with that is that you can be coding and you can make multiple changes, modifications throughout your code throughout. Doesn't matter how many classes you touch, but it doesn't try to rebuild or do anything inside of Unity until you come here and you hit the stop button. When you hit the stop button, then it does a compile, right? And only when it's in stopped mode, right, and you modify the code, does it keep on recompiling every time you give focus to Unity, right? I really like that behavior personally, but at some point, like I said, in 2021, they broke it, and it's been that way since. And in 2022, it's not fixed. So even 2021, the last LTS version, it doesn't have that working in it, which I find very strange because, yeah, some people may want that behavior, but I think most people don't want that behavior. Like me, you only want it to compile when Unity isn't stopped. You don't want it to try to recompile code when you're in the middle of play and modifying code. Like, to me, that's not my workflow, right? That's not what I want it to do, right? And oftentimes that gives errors like this here, right? Which is only happening because it was in play mode. I made a modification. It recompiled that class, right? Not that I made anything. I didn't actually change anything. All I'm doing is hitting enter and then save, or removing a line, an empty line, and just hitting save. That's all I'm doing. I'm not actually modifying any code, but that's enough to break this and throw these errors, which it should not be doing. So these are some of the things that Unity needs to fix. But of course, their priority list, I'm sure, is pretty huge. Like even for me, right? There's certain bugs that I have within my project, right? That, yeah, I know it's a bug and I know it's there, but just because it's there doesn't mean I'm going to jump on it, right? It's just not my priority. And I'm always reprioritizing whatever's the highest, like first, second, and third kind of priority stuff for me. So I understand that and I respect that from Unity's point of view, but there's some things that I would like to think are so broadly used, right, that kind of should be at least considered, right? Because like not having that one little thing for over a year, I think for how big of a company Unity is, maybe they can, have one guy just, hey, fix this thing, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. I don't know. I'm just talking from the point of view of someone who is affected by these kinds of things, right? So take that how you will. But yeah, so that's it. Anyway, I cannot figure out how to repeat that, and I know you guys saw it too. So I know I'm not crazy, but I don't know how to repeat that and make the UI, the circular navigation that's supposed to be on top, somehow end up behind. I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I did that. So we go here, start, guild. Yeah, so now it's coming out on top consistently. I don't know what to say. Okay, I'll just have to leave it until next time it happens, because I can't obviously diagnose it if it's not rearing its head. Okay. I was really hoping to fix that. So there's more bugs and there's more usability stuff, but in the state that it is right now, this is playable. And from what I've seen, it hasn't crashed in quite a while. There's certain behavior, like combination of certain behavior, yes, that will result in a crash, but it's stable and it's running, which is awesome. So I don't know. So what I need to do is I need to put some time aside, and I need to go through my code and identify some more bugs, because there is a bunch of bugs, as well as I need to do some refactoring of some of the logic. Because like I said, when we go into the world, I don't want to carry that kind of bloat of flawed logic with me into that, because I'm going to be adding a lot more complexity and a lot more systems that will work in parallel and be reliant on one another. So I need to address that. I need it to be more easily readable in terms of the code. I need to be able to easily diagnose it. And if need be, I need to create more tools, such as this one here, which shows the object pool. I need to implement more of this stuff, so I'll have an easier time when I get into the world. Because once we go into the world part of it, that's going in on the deep end, much, much further than this is right now. There's going to be a lot more complexities added. And then I really wish I had more artwork. I really do. And I've been trying, and I feel like I'm kind of throwing the money away, but I have to try, right? So what I've been doing is I went through Fiverr. I've gone through multiple gaming websites, and I keep trying again and again. And it's the same thing that I do all the time. I go through hundreds of portfolios. I look at artists who I think could potentially draw in a specific style that I need. I reach out to them. On average, I would say about 30 to 40% reply back. Most of them don't actually reply back, which I guess makes sense. Maybe they didn't like what I was saying, or maybe they're just, they're not confident that they can do what I'm asking. But I give a short little, message of hi, hello, greetings, kind of thing. I'm working on a hobby indie project. Here's the artwork or here's a screenshot example. Here's a quick point form, and I try to keep it short because nobody wants to read a novel, right? So I keep it like pretty short. Like I would say maybe 5, 10 sentences long kind of thing and in point form, right? And then I provide some image references and I say, this is what I would like, right? Would you be comfortable with creating one single sample? That's all I ask for, is one single sample to see if the way you interpret the art style is the way that I envision it, or if it's close enough that we can iterate on it, right? And then work towards a common solution, right? And that's my approach for everything, right? And I compensate them, of course. Some people are pretty expensive, and by expensive, I mean really expensive. I don't approach studios anymore, and I have briefly mentioned this before, but it gets expensive very easy. Like you can easily sink like, $700-800 and have absolutely nothing to show for it. So it adds up pretty quick. So I try not to do that very often, but I have to do that to eventually find someone. I don't know if there's a better way. I just don't have that kind of a reach. I mean, sure, if I had more resources, I could go through like, some kind of different methods. But again, it all comes down to limited resources. And since it's a hobby project, I have a difficult time justifying kind of putting that much towards it. I mean, there has to be a balance, right? There has to be. So anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing. One of the things that I have been working on as well, of course, is, the new, okay, so I can show this, but it's not completed. So please be mindful that this that I'm going to show you is not completed. It's just from one artist that I was working with, and there was a bunch of back and forth. So this is going to be conceptually the new game title or logo, or I don't know what the right term for it is, but think of it like the game name. Where is it? So this, I'm kind of happy with it, but at the same time, it's not quite where I want it to be. I think this is it. I don't want to open the wrong one. Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back, just because I don't want to open the wrong one. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that is the right one. So again, keep this in mind. This is very early. It is not complete. And this is the concept of the direction that I want to go with this. But I still think it looks pretty cool. So here's the concept, right? This is how far I've gotten it. And I think it's pretty good. Like I said, it's not completed. The sword is supposed to be replaced with a better pixel art sword. There's more work to be done on the text, and there's more work to be done on the two. And I'm waiting for other designers to get back to me. But this kind of stuff is very expensive. Really expensive for obvious reasons, right? Like you have to be really talented to make this kind of stuff, right? But I think this looks pretty good. And this is in the ballpark and direction. Of course, this is from multiple iterations. But I think this is, it's pretty good. Anyway, yeah, very nice. Yeah, I thought so too. But again, it's not quite there. And me being me, I'm not a perfectionist, but when I give direction for something that I would like, right? I want it to be in that direction. And if there's even one detail that veers from that direction and doesn't meet the instructions that I've clearly defined, right? To me, that stands out. And it's one of those things that needs to be addressed on the next iteration, right? So it's not really perfectionist, though some people would call that a perfectionist. I don't go down to the detail of every fraction of a pixel and say it must be perfect, right? That's not it, right? But even like the stuff that I do, you see me working on stuff, I try to get the details right, you know, through iterations and get it to be a point where it's something that I'm happy with, right? Because if I'm not happy with it, then it's one of those things that just stands out and it keeps on kind of nagging at me in the back of my mind of this could be fixed, this could be fixed, this could be fixed, and it never goes away. And every time I look at it, it stands out and it's glaring, like just staring me in the face, and I notice it, right? So that's just one of those things that I am, or one of the ways that is, I guess it's just a part of me and there's no really changing that. But at the same time, it's also good because programming, you kind of need to think like that in a way to solve things, right? You need to pay attention to those kinds of details, and when something doesn't stand out quite exactly in the way that you want, you need to be able to identify it, right, and then address it, right? So, and that requires some experimentation and most importantly, identifying what it is specifically that needs to be addressed. Yeah, so, okay, so with that, what I want to do is, since we're kind of running a bit low on time here, I want to just kind of get ready for the next thing that I'm going to be doing, which is, of course, I need more time to identify the bugs and figure out what kind of refactoring of logic I'm going to be doing. And some of it is going to be quite a bit in depth. So it's going to take me quite a while to do that and just get the, you know, address all of these weird anomalies and bugs. But for today, for the remainder of today, I just want to do a little bit of prep work. So let's open up Aseprite. We'll snap that over here. And we'll go into Aseprite. I think this was the last one we were working on. So there's these trees that I was working on that I thought were pretty good. And I'd like to just kind of, because right now, I just stopped it too. Inside of the game room, so what I have right now on the outside perimeter, I'm using these cubic kind of mushrooms. You can see these things, right? These were temporary. I didn't mean to leave them there as long as I did. I meant to use a different object, but when I swapped that out to the tree, the normal capsule tree, it's too big, right? The largest I want, and the reason why I went with the mushroom is because it doesn't hide what's behind it, right? So if there was a pickup object, like a spherical object or a player character or whatever that's back here, right? It doesn't get hidden by this object. And that's what I want. So I need an object that is approximately this size. So like a mini bush kind of tree thing. And I had this one in mind that I haven't used yet, but it's a pretty big, it's a newer one that I have yet to use, which I thought would be appropriate for this particular usage potentially. And I won't know until I try it. So let's have a look at it and see if I can, one, find it. And, oh, it's not on this layer. I was hoping it was here, because all of these I think I'm using. Actually, I don't know if I'm using this one. I think I'm only using the blue one and this one. I don't think I'm using this. This one's actually not that bad, though I'm not a big fan of that green color. It's a bit too, I don't know. I can't think of the right word for it. But I want something that's slightly different than this. And I have one too. I just don't know where it is. So I just need to find it real quick. Let's see if I can find it. I don't think it's in here. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Okay, I want to go to, nope, not there. Nope. Where did I have that? I hope I didn't lose it. That would be really unfortunate if I lost it. Nope. Not in there. Not in that one either. Nope. I think maybe I had it in a different location. Okay, so that's really old. Okay, so that was the sword from the logo. I actually made that pixel sword. I want to replace it. Okay, so that's our effects. I want to replace it. I want to have someone, I want to get the logo first to a good point. Okay, so it's not in this folder. Oh no, where is it then? So what I want to do is get the logo that I showed you, or the title, game title that I showed you. The pixel art sword will probably be one of the last things that gets replaced, but I want to do the rest of it, right? And the sword, I intentionally wanted it to be pixel art, but at the same time, I want it to complement each other, right? I don't want the sword to stand out and be something that doesn't really mesh well with the rest of it. I want some synergy in there, and I want them to complement each other. So the idea is to get the title and the two and the candy and the star and all that stuff to be at a point where I'm happy with it, and then have a different artist, a pixel artist, do the sword part, and then just plunk the sword in place and hopefully get a good result. That's kind of the idea. But again, what I just showed you likely will not even be remotely close to the actual finished product, because that was just one that I showed you. I've actually reached out to multiple different artists and compensated every single one of them, of course. I never asked for anything for free. If someone offered me something for free, I wouldn't take it, because then I can't use it in my project anyway. But yeah, so I've gone through many artists and many iterations to get to that one that I just showed you. So that is the best one that I have so far. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the main one that gets used. Okay, I can't even find it. Where would it be? Okay, I'm trying to navigate through it. Sorry, just bear with me. I will hopefully find it, but it's got to be in here somewhere. Come on. It's got to be somewhere in here. Okay. Nope. That was close to it. Where is it? So it looks like this though. Kind of like this one here. So it's a bit slimmer at the top and it's a bit wider as it gets closer to the ground. But I had one in Aseprite that I made. I just can't find it. So I don't know where it is. And I usually don't lose stuff like that. I just know it's buried somewhere. I just don't know where. Okay, so there's kind of a variation of it. So it's something similar to that, right? But what I want to do is I want to make a slightly smaller version of that. So somewhere in between that one and a different size. I just need to find my project file. I don't know where it is. It has to be in my main. Has to be in my main art folder for the project. Maybe not. I don't know where it is. Nope. None of those. It's not like me to lose something like that. I'm very careful about those things. I'm just not thinking clearly right now. I'm sure I'll find it. There's no way it's possibly lost. It's just right now because there's so much stuff all over the place. I don't know where it is. Okay, so it's not in there. I'm trying to see, maybe it was somewhere that I overlooked. So I want to have a second look and see if it's anywhere in here. It's been a while since I worked on any of those ground cubes. I definitely need to do more of those. We need a lot more variations of that. And we'll get there eventually, just not anytime soon. There's just too much stuff to do and not enough time. Where is that tree? I don't get it. Has to be somewhere. Okay, so it's not in here. So if it's not in there, then where else would it be? I don't know. I can't find it right now. I'm not thinking clearly. That's okay. We'll figure it out. I'll have something for next time, I guess, maybe. I was really hoping that I could find it and kind of do a little bit of prep work and get started on it. But the basis of it comes from the same it seems like you did this before. Possibly. Let's see. Where's my perspective project? Okay. Let's open this one up because I know I have the, at least I think so, the original 3D model that I used as the reference. I believe I have that in here. So we'll just wait for Unity to open up. And then we'll take a quick look at it and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so out of these, so this is the tree right here. This one here. So what I'm going to do is, because this one is a really big version of it, there's that one, and then there's a smaller version of it. So there's two different sizes of it. I have it somewhere. So I have this big version, and then I have the smaller version, which is the 40 pixels in width. But then what I need to do is bring it down. So I need to take this and make a smaller version of something about this size, right? So it doesn't extrude or impede, should I say, onto the tile before it or behind it. So then, oh, Unity camera died. I will one day get a new camera as well. One day. Yeah, that's what you did. Then you found it. I know I have it somewhere. I just don't know where. There's too many folders and I'm not thinking clearly right now. I'm just not. So I'm sorry. I will find it. But what I'm saying though, so I want to take this one, right? I have two sizes of it. I have this big version, which is usable kind of as is, but it's a bit too chunky. It's too big. I mean, it's not that it's bad. It's just too big in the current way that it is. It needs to be higher up at least so that you can see the base of it. So if we move this up more, right? So I want to be able to at least like see the base of it a bit more, kind of, right? Because it's so big. And then what I want to do is kind of like a different versions, right? So I want to, of course, like I said, I want to do a bit more pixel art, but I want to have one version of this, which is slightly smaller than this, but closer to about the total height of this one here. So if we take this and look at it as the total height, right? So approximately this size in terms of height. So if you take this and just kind of scale it down by, I don't know, 25%, so it would be at 75% of what it is, it would roughly fit into this size, I think, approximately. So that's one of the things I want to do. And then I want to do some color variations. As you guys already know, I'm big on color variations just because it's a really easy way of getting more stuff, right? So I want to do more color variation. So then that'll give us more trees of things that we have to work with. Because right now, we're kind of a bit limited in terms of what we currently have. So if we take this, there's a shortcut that I'm forgetting, but it's because I haven't used Aseprite in a while. But let's see, environment. Right, so this is what we got so far. We got these three, which are okay, right? The colors have room for improvement, especially the green one. I'm not a big fan of that green. But then we have these two variations, right? So we got this one, and then we have a green variation. We have these as well that I have yet to bring in, right? In terms of the trees, there's that. So we have this green variation as well that's not yet being used. I do want to work on the colors. Colors are not my strong point, to be honest. It's something that takes many iterations, but that's okay. So then I want to have one in between. So something maybe not exactly this size, but something like this is a smaller size that I never went back to. But I was thinking I would use this smaller size as well, because right now this is kind of the default size of what we have for these trees, which is okay. And then we have these ones, which are kind of like the layered kind of cake tree. And then we have the spherical ones, right? So these are perfect sphere, right? Which are okay. Again, has room for improvement. But I want to add more variations of not just shapes, but colors. Because colors just gives us more variety, so you're not always looking at the same thing. But different shapes as a whole, it helps me better visualize it. And it also helps better visualize it when you hand it off to an artist and you say, here's what I got so far, right? Please make more stuff that matches this stuff, right? So when you're asking someone to make more stuff that matches this stuff, right, it helps to have more to show, right? And then these, all of them have room for improvement, which I'll be iterating on. I was never a big fan of this one here. I think conceptually, it's a really good idea. Execution in terms of colors and what it looks like, not. Definitely not. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. And this one too, I had another idea of making a similar one to this, but instead of the hearts, they would be stars instead. I think that would be like pretty appropriate with a different color change and maybe even different ring locations or something, but similar to this, right? But yeah, I have some ideas. It's just finding the time for it isn't always easy to do that when there's so many different things that are there that need to be worked on. So anyway, so I think that's probably going to be it for me today. Next broadcast will be on Friday. Hopefully I will not be missing that one. But like I said before, I'm also working on my next YouTube tutorial video. So that's taking up a bit of my time because I like to kind of balance things out instead of always doing the same thing. I like to keep things interesting. So I am researching shaders, VFX, and those kinds of things, programming and trying to figure this stuff out, trying to figure out like and assess, you know, what kind of things that need to be reprioritized. And then tutorials, they're really helpful because one, it gives me the opportunity to share knowledge. And the second is that it brings awareness to my channel and to me and to the project as an extension of me as a whole, right? So it's beneficial all the way around, right? So there's benefits in all of it. Thanks, Des. Perhaps I'll see you on next Friday. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, but that's going to be it for me today. So for those of you that have been watching, make sure to please hit that follow, subscribe, join Discord. There's Twitter, there's Instagram. I don't really use those, to be honest. They're just kind of there. But that's going to be it for me today. So thank you for watching. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.